Caitlin Clark just made WNBA history again. But somehow, she was not the only Fever player everyone was talking about. Because in the same game, where Clark became the fastest player in WNBA history to reach 600 career assists, Sophie Cunningham walked right into the spotlight too. And that is what makes this Fever win different. This was not just a Caitlin Clark record night. This was not just another blowout. This was the night Indiana started looking like something more dangerous. A team with a superstar engine, a team with real scoring around her, a team with personality, a team with edge, and a team where Sophie Cunningham can go from viral UFC moment one day to dropping 20 points the next. That is not normal background noise. That is identity. And right now, the Fever might be discovering the one thing every Caitlin Clark team needs. Not just people who play beside her. People who make the entire story bigger. Let's start with the part that should not get overlooked. Caitlin Clark reached 600 career assists faster than anyone in WNBA history. 72 games. That is all it took. The previous record belonged to Ticha Penicheiro, who needed 81 games. That matters because assists tell a different story than scoring. Everybody knows Caitlin can shoot. Everybody knows she can stretch a defense from ridiculous range. Everybody knows she can turn one possession into a viral clip. But assists show something deeper. They show control, vision, timing, trust, and the ability to make teammates better. That is why this record matters. It is not just another number. It proves Caitlin Clark is not only a scorer who creates attention. She is a system. She is the player who turns spacing into panic. She is the player who makes defenders choose wrong. She is the player who sees windows before they open. And even while managing her body, even while coming back from injury concerns, even while not playing unlimited minutes, she still made history. That is the crazy part. This was not a 38-minute takeover. This was 24 minutes, 12 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, and another record gone. That is how fast Caitlin Clark changes the scoreboard without even needing to dominate the ball all night. This is what makes the Fever's 109-75 win over Las Vegas so important. Indiana did not win because Caitlin had to do everything. They won because the team looked complete. That is the version of the Fever that should scare people. Because if Caitlin has to score 30 every night, Indiana becomes predictable. But if Caitlin can control the game, create rhythm, and let other players punish the defense, that is a much bigger problem for the league. Kelsey Mitchell scored 27. Sophie Cunningham scored 20. The Fever put up 109. And Caitlin still made history. That is the formula. Not Caitlin carrying everything. Caitlin unlocking everything. There is a huge difference. When Caitlin is the only story, opponents know where to load pressure. But when Mitchell is scoring, Sophie is hitting shots, and the Fever are running with confidence. The defense cannot just stare at Caitlin. They have to guard the whole team. And that is when Caitlin becomes even more dangerous. Because the best version of Caitlin Clark is not always the version taking every shot. Sometimes, the best version is the one bending the entire floor until someone else gets the clean look. That is why 600 assists matters. It tells you Indiana's growth is not only about Caitlin being great. It is about whether the Fever can finally cash in on the greatness she creates. Now here is where this game became very interesting. Sophie Cunningham did not just play well. She became part of the entire entertainment package around the Fever. One day, she is making headlines for a surprise UFC ring girl appearance in Las Vegas. The next day, she is putting up 20 points in a Fever blowout. That is why fans are locked in. Because Sophie is not just a role player in the background anymore. She has become a character in the Caitlin Clark era. And sports fans love characters. They remember the player who brings edge. They remember the teammate who looks unafraid. They remember the personality who turns a regular game into a storyline. Sophie Cunningham has that. She has the shooting. She has the attitude. She has the confidence. And now she has the viral spotlight too. That matters, because the Fever need players who can handle the attention around Caitlin Clark. Not every teammate can do that. Some players shrink when the lights get brighter. Some players become careful. Some players look like they are just trying not to make mistakes. Sophie does not give that energy. She looks like she understands the show. She looks like she is comfortable in the noise. And on a Caitlin Clark team, that is more valuable than people realize. The reason this Caitlin and Sophie dynamic works is simple. They solve different problems. Caitlin creates the gravity. Sophie brings the edge. Caitlin makes defenses move. Sophie punishes space. Caitlin attracts the spotlight. Sophie does not look scared of it. That combination matters. Because the Fever are not just building a basketball team. They are building a team under a microscope. Every Caitlin game is watched differently. Every foul is debated. Every bench reaction is clipped. Every teammate relationship becomes content. Every win becomes a statement. And in that environment, the supporting cast cannot be invisible. They have to become part of the identity. Sophie Cunningham is doing that. When she scores 20, after a viral weekend, it sends a message. She is not just around the story. She can become the story. And that makes Indiana harder to reduce to one player. For months, people have said the Fever are just Caitlin Clark. But games like this challenge that. Because if Caitlin is making history, and Sophie is lighting up the scoreboard, and Mitchell is leading the scoring, then the Fever are becoming layered. That is what contenders need. Not one headline. A whole cast. Some people will treat the UFC ring girl moment like a funny side story. And yes, part of it is funny. It was unexpected. It was viral. It was very Sophie. But from a media point of view, it matters. Because it shows Sophie Cunningham is crossing into a larger sports conversation. Not just WNBA fans. Not just Fever fans. UFC fans. Dana White. Social media. Casual viewers who might not watch every Fever game, but suddenly recognize Sophie's face. That is valuable. This is exactly how sports personalities grow. Not only through box scores. Through moments. Through attitude. Through recognizability. Through being interesting enough that people want to click even before they know the stats. And then Sophie backed it up with 20 points. That is the important part. If she had the viral moment and then disappeared in the game, it would just be noise. But she turned the noise into performance. That is why this story works. She did not just go viral. She delivered. And when a player does both, the audience starts paying attention differently. This is also good news for Caitlin Clark. Because the best thing that can happen to Caitlin right now is for the Fever story to become bigger than Caitlin alone. That might sound strange, but it is true. When Caitlin is the only story, the pressure becomes enormous. Every loss is about her. Every turnover is about her. Every missed shot is about her. Every injury update becomes panic. Every limited-minute game becomes a national conversation. But when Indiana has other characters producing real moments, the pressure spreads. Mitchell can carry scoring. Sophie can carry personality and edge. Boston can carry stability. The team can become something more complete. That helps Caitlin. Because the more the Fever become a real team, the less Caitlin has to be the entire franchise every night. And that is how her game can breathe. That is how she can control without forcing. That is how she can break records in 24 minutes without needing to turn every possession into a highlight. That is what Indiana should want. Not Caitlin doing everything. Caitlin making everyone else matter. A 109-75 win is not subtle. That is not sneaking by. That is not surviving. That is a statement. And for Indiana, the timing matters. Caitlin is coming off injury management. The All-Star break is approaching. The Fever are trying to build momentum, and the league is watching to see whether this team is real or just popular. This kind of win helps answer that. Because popularity gets attention. But blowout wins create belief. Records create history. Balanced scoring creates confidence. And viral personalities create connection. That is what Indiana had in this game. Caitlin gave them history. Mitchell gave them scoring. Sophie gave them performance and personality. The team gave them dominance. That is the kind of mix that can actually travel. Not just through the standings. Through the algorithm. Through highlights. Through headlines. Through fan debates. Through casual sports talk. And that is exactly where the Fever want to be. Caitlin Clark made WNBA history again. That alone should have been the headline. Fastest to 600 assists. A record that proves she is not just a scorer, but one of the best creators the league has ever seen this early in a career. But the bigger story is what happened around her. The Fever did not look like a one-player show. They looked like a team with weapons. They looked like a team with personality. They looked like a team where Sophie Cunningham can step into the spotlight, go viral, score 20, and make the whole Fever brand feel louder. That matters. Because the Caitlin Clark era was never going to reach its full potential with Caitlin standing alone. It needs teammates. It needs characters. It needs edge. It needs people who can handle the attention and turn it into energy. And right now, Sophie Cunningham is becoming exactly that. So yes, Caitlin Clark made history. But Sophie Cunningham made the Fever feel dangerous. And that might be the real warning to the rest of the WNBA. Indiana is no longer just waiting for Caitlin to save them. They are starting to build something around her. And if this version of the Fever keeps showing up, the rest of the league has a much bigger problem than one record-breaking point guard.